Today we're going to go back to our cash basis trade, or the basis trade that we've done 2 videos on in the last, month, 2 months, no more than that. And I'm going to put up 2 articles, one from OMFIF, which I posted before, talking about the basis trade so you can understand it and how big it is. And then secondly, what's in the paper today, and that'll be from Yahoo Finance, but I'm going to be cutting and pasting in between. Okay, so this is one cutout that from the OMFIF article. And OMFIF is for big-time pension funds, sovereign wealth, trillion-dollar funds. God knows what this costs. You and I will never find out, that's for sure, okay? But the basis trade exploits the arbitrage between treasury futures and cash treasuries, okay? You buy your cash treasuries, right? And then you write the futures against them. So kind of like you do with the covered call on an option, okay? Except the futures are not, we write the futures against there, and there's a difference. And so they tell you here in the thing, they say, with asset managers on the other side of the futures and collects the basis or spread, conservatively estimated, the best basis captures 45 basis points annualized, which hedge funds lever up at least 20 times on repurchase agreements or prime brokerage for upwards of a 9% yield, okay? But here's the real critical part. Let's go to the next paragraph. So the Treasury estimates, they say, what's the word they used? Anecdotally, a good approximation is that the trade leverage is 20 times. But this OMFIF, the big time organization, they actually went out into the field and they asked people, how much are you leveraged? And it came back that the average hedge fund was levered 56 times, okay? Not 20, 56 times. This is average. And as we pointed out before, what does that mean? Well, that means there's people out there that leverage 100, 150 times, maybe 200 times on this trade. Because there's the hedge funds out there, they're barely leveraged at all, if at all, okay? So to get to 56 times, people are highly, highly leveraged. So today, in Bloomberg, the Fed urged, so they have a financial panel of financial experts, and they urged the Fed to explore a hedge fund bailout tool for the basis trade, the one we're just talking about, where these guys are leveraged 100, 150, 200 times, okay? Let's come up with a bailout tool just for these guys. They point out here when people unwind and you say, okay, if there's a crisis, why do people unwind? Well, when there's a crisis, you tend to gather cash, especially when you're leveraged 150 to 200 times. So you sell. And so the last time this happened to us was during those first couple of days of COVID, okay? As I stated here many times on this channel, we bailed out Goldman Sachs. No one will admit that. They're prime funds. But we went in and bought $1.6 trillion worth of treasuries from these hedge funds and private equity people going to cash because they're selling so much, they would have destroyed the treasury market. So the Fed stepped up and bought $1.6 trillion, which, by the way, is kind of an expensive way. And they say here in the last paragraph, if the Fed is tempted to buy again, we'd rather they do it on a hedged basis. This approach can be a valuable addition to the policy toolkit that the Fed has. So look at this first paragraph. So we already said that the hedge funds, on average, are 56 times leverage. But look what the dude says here. It's a pretty concentrated trade involving perhaps 10 hedge funds or fewer. So 8, 9, 10 hedge funds were to set up a special tool so that they can unwind their $2.1 trillion on the basis trade so they don't lose money, they don't destroy our treasury market because they're leveraged up 150, 200 times. And they're saying with this basic purchase facility in place, it would avoid a squeeze on dealers that risk disruptions and other activities such as providing secondary market liquidity for treasuries and for repurchase agreements. The paper recognizes that bailing out hedge funds would raise questions, including moral hazard. It raises more questions than that. So the guy actually sits there and says, the basis of comparison shouldn't be no moral hazard. So what he's saying is, this is not a black and white world. The basis trade exists. What we can control, though, is the leverage. We should tell them, no, you can't leverage this up 50, 100, 200 times. You can't do that. But they're not saying that. They're saying, let's create a new facility just to buy their stuff from them. Now, let me ask you a question. If you're one of these hedge funds and the Fed goes out and builds this facility to bail you out, it's specifically built to bail out 10 or less hedge funds who are levered up 150 to 200 times. You don't think that is going to create moral hazard? So they explain the new facility and how it changes how things work in the background, how the Fed pays out money, gathers money, and all this other stuff. If you want to read it, go ahead. I'm going to post the article and read the whole thing. I'm putting up for the last sentence. The legality of such a new facility is an important question, but beyond the scope of this discussion. In other words, at this point, it's illegal for the Fed to do this, but they're saying, let's create this facility and make it legal so we can bail out these hedge funds. So, what does this mean to us, and why do we really care? Look, it's my belief, my observations, that every big market downturn in my 50 years in the business has been started on the short end of the debt market, okay? 2007, it started on the short end. It always starts on the short end because we're so leveraged. The whole system's leveraged. And the liquidity, actually, if you start losing liquidity in your short end, you're going to lose it in the intermediate and the long end, okay? So when you're watching, you're saying, oh, the market's going to blow up, it's going to do this and all this. Trust me, watch the short end. So why are we paying attention to this? This is a basis trade, for God's sakes. This is the short end. This is T-bills selling futures of T-bills against it. And if this blows up, it blows everything up unless the Fed goes in like they did in 2020 and buy $1.6 billion worth of, $1.6 trillion worth of paper from all these hedge funds, okay? So it does count. So here's the question today I want comments on. Do we create this facility or do we stop them from leveraging up? Do we put a cap and say, look, you can do the basis trade, but you can't do it more than 20 times, 10 times? They're minimum 100 to 200 times. What do we do? Like and follow? Let me know in the comments.